Hi there! My dad gave me a special project to do, so we're going to do that today. My dad stopped in the other day and gave me this big battery from his RV, his motorhome, and these big jumper cables. He wants a cart to put the battery on, put the jumper cables on, with wheels so he can wheel it out to whatever he wants to jump start. So he's basically going to turn this into a mobile jump starting battery, and he wants a cart for it. I have very technical drawings here. This is my design, kind of, incomplete. I did this like a week ago, so I hope I can remember what all this gibberish means. But that's the design. There's all the pieces over there on the floor that I have cut already. Just spilled a bunch of coffee on myself, so that's good. That's fine, I already stink of coffee. My very manly flower mug. I came up with this. This is just a pattern that I made for the battery tray. Basically, battery's going to sit in here. Some parts are going to fold up and down. The up parts will hold the battery in. The down parts will weld the battery tray to the cart. Kind of simple, but I'm going to spruce it up a bit. The punch and flare die and a bead. I went ahead and already made that in metal. Kind of cut it out. Cut the 1/2-inch holes, which I need to make the dies. And we're just going to get started now with the fun part. So basically, I want to take this punch and flare die, make a small, this is a 1-inch, so it's just a small hole. These are already 1/2-inch holes. So 1-inch punch and flares all the way around, bead up the middle, and then fold the rest. This is yet another good example of a real-world project that I'm doing with all of these random tools that I got. Some people get kind of trapped, I think, in this process of just acquiring tools or thinking that the tools make you the handyman. Well, the tools really don't do jack without you. And if you don't build anything interesting, what's the point of having them? This is really hard to crank this. Really hard to crank this and direct it with one arm. I'm really glad they're coming out with an electric feed system for this. There, that's probably pretty good. So here's the idea. I want to punch 10 of these. These are the punch and flare dies. They do this cool thing. Here's the punch part, and here's kind of the flare. So you want to put them in the right way to make sure the flare goes in the direction you want. I think because it punches a big hole and then flares it, the big hole allows the metal to kind of go where it wants, as opposed to like here. Here's a floor patch for the van that I haven't finished or welded in. I took out the punch die. And just did the flare, and it ended up warping everything, which the panel is supposed to be bent up anyway, but I ended up having to cut it and then kind of shape it and then weld that together to get the correct shape that I wanted. Whenever I've done the punch and the flare, which admittedly is not much, it always comes out flat. So I think the punch is the key factor there. So, gonna do 10 of these. I don't know if there's a specific spot, top or bottom, you want to put the punch. I really don't know. I wasn't paying attention. There we go. Let's see what we got. And as always, a stuck die. And a missing rubber hammer. Found it. This one always sticks. Don't know why. Always sticks. Alright, now just 10 more of those. Cool looking though, right? I also don't know if it's important, but I keep these things oiled, like I WD-40 the crap out of them. Don't want them rusting on the shelf. But I really want it to be cool looking, because this is a project for my dad, and my dad's just in general a pretty awesome guy, especially if you know everything that he's done over his life. You know, like Ron Swanson, he can just seem to do anything. So I kind of want to make sure this is spruced up a bit. Not only because he bought these punch and flare dies for me for my birthday this year, and also my MIG welder for Christmas like 2 years ago, and I'm going to be using that. Still don't know if you're supposed to use an impact gun or not, but this is, I've mentioned this before, this is the weakest impact gun I've ever seen. And it's not even turned up to maximum. In fact, modifying the Power Wheels Jeep is an idea that's sprung from my dad. When I was young, I had a Power Wheels Jeep, and he wired in extra batteries, so I had a lot more voltage, and I could do donuts with it. Those plastic wheels that don't have any grip, it was sweet. You know, my dad even took an electronics course years ago that involved building his own oscilloscope and his own television, like from a kit. So he just got a bucket of circuit board parts and he built an oscilloscope and then used the oscilloscope to build more stuff. And he had it in his shop for a long time, and eventually it stopped working, and he couldn't get parts for it anymore because I was like 30 years old. My dad also worked as an engineer for a while, designing air conditioning systems, designing and testing them, and testing various electronics for some company, I don't remember. Holes punched, bead rolled. Okay, now I haven't quite planned how I'm going to fold these up. So, pliers maybe? Probably these ones. Let's see, the middle ones go down, the corner ones go up, if I remember my design right. My dad also grew up on a dairy farm. Very typical Wisconsin thing to do. But if you know farmers, you know they tend to be very resourceful people. And they kind of become very handy in many different fields out of necessity. Which might explain his somewhat crazy ability to just do anything. But the only thing he doesn't know how to do is software coding. And he even did some of that, but he did it in like the 80s, so can't do like modern software coding. Pretty cool. It's almost looking like a thing now. Probably the craziest thing about my dad though, he is 70 years old, and yet he works like 60 hours a week. That's probably a conservative estimate. But he owns his own business and he's working like crazy. And I'll tell you this much, if I'm in as good a shape as he is when I'm that age, I'll be very happy. I've seen a whole lot of people a whole lot younger with not much physically wrong with them who still need a walker and a wheelchair and all that. And he's like riding and driving his Mustang and carrying appliances and all that. It's crazy, I tell you. It's nice that I'm building this today because it is Father's Day. So I'm building this, and earlier today I celebrated Father's Day by borrowing his lawnmower and mowing my lawn. My lawnmower broke. I also brought it over here in his work truck. This isn't his Father's Day present, by the way. We gave it to him. We gave him his present earlier. This is just something he wanted me to build. Cool! Battery tray. Now that I've gone through all the work to make it, let's see if the battery fits. Oh, the beast is heavy. Success! It fits! Unfortunately, it hides all the cool stuff under there, but it fits! Hopefully it doesn't flash rust too much from me touching it and sweating all over it. WD-40 wipe it all over. That works pretty good, but you gotta clean it off then before you do any welding or spraying or anything like that. I fully admit I may have also borrowed this can of WD-40 from his work truck. Thanks, Dad. Square tube. Probably a bit on the beefy side, but that's what I had. So what I'm gonna do, I've cleaned the mill scale off, but it's probably been a little while and I've been touching them and WD-40's been spraying everywhere. Some idiot's just been coating everything. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe it down. Give me something else. Floor patch panel. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and wipe the welding joints, what I'm going to weld, down with some acetone, because I've heard that helps. Ooh, there's some mill scale I missed. Oh, and on the other side too. What the crap, me? Okay, so I want to weld these together, like so, at a 90-degree angle. My bench, this is a perfect 90 degree because I didn't cut this. That's pretty square. It's definitely squarer than it's going to be after I do the welding and get the heat distortion. Fire up the welder. I'm going to use the MIG welder. The MIG welder until I run out of MIG gas. I have very little MIG gas left. There, they match pretty well. It doesn't quite matter if they're perfectly square as long as they match. Ever feel like you need more hands than you have? I'll just hang them on the battery tray. Yeah. Wedge that in. So this way, even if it's not square at all, it will at least fit the battery tray. So, pretty sure the camera shut off for that, but look, tacks. Tacks on both sides. I just tack welded. You know what tack welding looks like. You don't need to see that. The next major part is the top of this. It's just a simple one of these. Distortion. Isn't it grand? Isn't it grand? Of course, that's assuming it wasn't me who screwed this up. And it probably was. I didn't exactly cut these perfect. Toasty warm. Those welds look like little slugs, maybe little turds. I really do need to practice more. I just unclamped this, and it came off. You know, I felt like I was having grounding issues. And it looks like the grounding issue was right there. Now that's just crappy connectors there. Crimped on. I don't have another one of these connectors, one of these lugs. And Eastwood, if you're watching, disappoint. I know you're not watching. That's why I don't feel bad about modifying this thing when it'll probably void my warranty. But if it makes you feel better, I do fix machines for a living, just not welders. Fixing stuff, by the way, another thing my dad taught me. Since we're on that subject, and since we're on this subject, this is the absolute worst way to fix this. Do not do this in real life. In fact, this is such a bad way to fix it, it's not really a way to fix it. It's a way to bodge it. And if this bodge doesn't work, I know what my next bodge is going to be. Sounds like an excuse for some more TIG welding practice, huh? That's why you get 2 welders, people. Also because, yay, more welders. Not that I ever knew what I was doing, but I've definitely lost the touch. There, I dare say that's not quite as terrible. Alright, so got all those welded. Only burned my finger a little bit. So I want to get the next part done, which is these bits. These are going to stick out, and I'm going to cut some ends out of this, some bar I have somewhere laying around, and this is where you'll wrap the jumper cables around. Where is my Sharpie? On the floor. Of course it's on the floor. Where else would you keep a Sharpie? I've seen people TIG welding without gloves before. I don't know how they do it. I get burned through the gloves. Like, what gives? What am I doing wrong? Am I just not manly enough? Okay, well, I guess that's tack welded. You know, everyone says get comfortable, but sometimes I just cannot find a comfy position to do this. You know, and I'm thinking something that goes up and also down a little bit, has rounded edges. So I have a piece of bar here that I marked something out, and I'm also going to put a little hole in that so he can, like, if he's strapping anything to it, he has like a bungee cord loop or whatever, which means we can play with a new toy that I got. Hardly new, it's older than I am by some years. In fact, it's branded Montgomery Ward's, and they went out of business, I don't know, 4 years before I was born or something. But it is a drill press. Quite a nice drill press. I got it from my dad. It's kind of a lightweight, light-duty one. I had a little chance to open it up and oil it and stuff, and everything inside is metal. Like, it's got a plastic shell, but metal frame, metal gears. I cut them, I rounded the edges just because you don't need any more things to impale yourself on in the garage. Cut the hole in on off center, but it is fine. Who cares? Just gotta weld them on. Oh, before I do that, I made another panel. Made exactly like the battery tray, but simpler, and I used the bigger holes. But hey, I got these dimple dies, gotta use them. My wife said, when she saw it, she said, "Are you just gonna punch holes in everything now?" And I said, yes, absolutely. Anything with sheet metal, I will punch more holes in it. I'll even add this ornamental piece of sheet metal and punch holes in it just because holes are cool. They're speed holes. They make the cart go faster. It's a charging cart. They make the cart charge faster. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. You'll have to talk to an engineer on that. I also welded the wheels on. Ugly, ugly welds. There. I'm going to pretend that shape was on purpose for aesthetic reasons. That argument would probably be a lot better if it was a less ugly shape. Okay, so I have propped it on the pieces that I want to use as legs, just to get a sense of how it sits. It leans forward. Whoops. Don't worry, I have a plan to fix it. Step 1 is to weld it up anyway. Step 2 is to then figure out how I'm going to fix it. This is probably better than like measure twice, cut once. It's just eyeball it, cut it, stick it on, and then figure out where to go from there. So it works too. It's a little more exciting, I think, personally. I'm still no good at TIG welding, but that's probably my best one so far on these end pieces. The open tube, I couldn't clean inside it really well, so anytime the puddle gets in there, it goes all sparkly and splattery. So I was trying very carefully to keep a tight arc and not to get any of the melt in there, and I think I achieved that, which I'm pretty happy with. So what I'm going to do is weld this plate, focus! Anyways, welding that plate to that steel. Now that's 20 gauge, and that's 1/8 inch wall. And I kind of came up with a way to do it on the back. And any of you welders out there are probably going to be screaming at the top of your lungs how much it sucks. But I'm going to need you to man up and just deal with it for a little while. So what I'm going to do is pulse. And I'm not going to add filler, I'm just going to pulse and melt, kind of melt the top piece there into the bottom piece. And it worked. It worked on the back, I promise. It's ugly, but it definitely held. Okay, well, that didn't actually work. I take it back. I'm trying. Give me a break. I'm trying. So, I mentioned I have a plan, and here it is. I've cut through 3 sides, but not the front side, because I want these to bend backwards. So my idea is, put this on the floor with the railroad track over the front and jump, bend this part down, and then weld all of this solid, so it'll give it kind of a graceful arc. And remember how it's slightly out of square? Well, this side has one more cut than that side. I'm hoping that fixes it, but we'll find out. Okay, well, it's still crooked, but at least it's not leaning forward. The graceful arc looks kind of neat. Now it's time to weld it all together. I've learned this multiple times, but things definitely need to be clean for TIG welding, and these were not clean. It looks like it's pretty much done, though. I'm gonna need a lot of cleaning up with a grinder, so that should be fun and noisy. Ta-da! There it is. So I got all the parts. I the grinding. I hit it with the drum sander. I hit it with this, which is like an etch thing with some steel wool. Cleaned it down. Hit it with some of this acetone to get it nice and clean, ready for paint. And my dad has a paint color that he wants to paint it. It's a can to match his golf cart or something like that. But he's got the paint. But I don't just want to give it to him bare because I know he's a busy guy. He might not get to it in a while. I don't want it to rust. So I got this. Premium makes it good. It's paint, primer, and it's clear. That'll stop it from flash rusting, but it'll still look cool and metal-like, which I like. I really like the look of just brushed metal, but rust isn't so cool. So, through the miracle of editing, let's do one of them cool, fancy transitions. Boom! It looks the same. It's clear. What did you expect? It is shinier, though. Glossy.